Yeah. We're pretty sure this class.
Supposed to be 6
We're a
o'clock.
little confused, aren't we?
I call the March 16, 2020 regular meeting of council to order. Councilperson Donovan will give the invocation this evening.
Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. Help us to use good judgment for the business at hand, and guide us in wisdom with a continuing sense of truth and fairness for the community we represent. And I'd like to add a special prayer for our fire, police, and everyone suffering with this coronavirus. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Julie, please call the roll.
She's not there. She's not there.
Mr.
Please
Donovan.
take your seat.
Oh, she's over there.
Mr. Donovan?
Here.
Mrs. Dowling?
Here.
Mr. Kirchner?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Landig?
Here.
Mr. Marne?
Excused.
Mr. Blake?
Over here.
Council, you have received the minutes of the work session of March 3rd, 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. And the regular meeting of March 3rd, 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes. Yes. Before we enter into the normal agenda for council, just like to comment that the public may notice there's a different arrangement, the DS this evening, and this is relative to social distance. And at this time, I'd like the city manager to comment a little further and in detail on the city's response to the coronavirus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, we have doing our best to keep our public updated through our various social media platforms. We do daily updates every day on our website, so we encourage the public to take a look at those. If you have questions about any city services or any changes in schedules, which of course there have been a lot. I mean, obviously this is a moving target we've all experienced. We went from one day what we believe is proper preparation changes 2 hours later. And so we're trying to keep up with the pace of that change, but we're also at the same time continue to make preparations for preparing the community for what may come. So our city departments continue their preparation to meet the needs of the public in the event that the positive COVID-19 results emerge here in Lake County. We expect that that will happen, although it's important to point out that that has not yet. Emergency operations for the center for the city is active. But we will be providing and continue to provide core level services. Those include our police, fire and EMS, our dispatch, all necessary inspections, processing permits, our Public Works Department and all their actions and services that they provide that are necessary, and of course facilities maintenance. All recreation programs at this time are canceled, and the city is not taking any additional rental reservations. City Hall will remain open, as will the Police and Fire Administration buildings. However, we encourage residents to visit for emergencies or necessary business only if possible. All other city facilities are closed to the public at this time. The senior center is closed, but we will continue preparing meals for the senior population of the city of Mentor as a pickup service only. If you are a senior citizen within the community, please call 440-572-5725 for additional information and to register. Reservations for lunch must be made by noon the day prior, or they can be made online at mentorseniorcenter.com. Also by calling the senior center. You can pay for those with a credit card over the phone. The cost of the meal still remains at $4.50, and the pickup time is between 11:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. And then we do have it's a curbside pickup at Munson Road entrance. You just show your ID. You don't have to get out of the car, and our our employees and volunteers will bring that out to you. And the meals are posted on a weekly basis on our website as well. Our community goal remains consistent with the state and federal goal, which is slowing the transmission and spread of the disease. We will continue to work in harmony with our health district, the state of Ohio, all federal agencies, and our local healthcare systems. We encourage our residents, all residents, to follow the rules in place to minimize transmission. These include those mandated by the Ohio governor, and I'll just read off that list. It seems to change every day. All restaurants and bars are closed to the public other than for carry-out or delivery. All fitness centers, gyms, bowling alleys, public recreation centers, movie theaters, indoor water parks, and trampoline parks will remain closed. Gatherings of over 50 people are prohibited. We encourage others, we encourage everyone also to consider following the CDC and Health Department recommendations and that those be taken seriously. Those include maintaining social distancing of about 6 feet or so. Councilman Landing pointed out the changes here in our council chamber. These are intended to try to provide that level of distance. Also like to give a special recognition to Councilman Marn, who is not here with us today because he recently returned from a cruise. And while no one on that cruise was found to be infected with COVID-19, the rules say that you should do your best to stay, to minimize social interaction for a period of time. So we appreciate that gesture and that leadership. Limiting gatherings of 10 or more people, staying home and seeking care if you are sick, helping to keep the elderly and those with underlying health conditions in lesser contact with the general population. That not only includes those that are within that population, but those who care for those or who might consider visiting. Frequently washing your hands and using disinfectant, and frequently cleaning and disinfecting hard surfaces in your home or place of business. So as a community, as a state, and as a nation, we're all in this together. The City of Mentor is doing everything we can to make sure our service providers, especially our first responders, will be there when they're needed. That is our primary goal. We all need to do our part to lessen that burden if we can, and to keep our goal, our number one goal in mind, which is to keep Mentor healthy. So that's all, Mr. President.
If we've learned one thing the last days, week, certainly it's a very dynamic situation. It's constantly changing with new restrictions, new requests of the public. And just as Councilman Marn wanted to be here, that flexibility to self-isolate is something that we may all soon encounter with ourselves or others we know. So it is dynamic and changing. Thank you to the administration for keeping flexible. Public hearings, we have none this evening. New legislation. Ordinance number 20-0-027.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Mentor 2006 as amended, section 1137.08, to provide for council review and approval of amendments to legislatively adopted development plans.
Mr. President? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr.
I
Donovan.
move to put this on, move it to second reading?
Is there any?
First reading?
First reading, yes.
Second.
This item is subject to a public hearing for passage, so at a later date, possibly April 7th, if that meeting is held, it would have a public hearing for the comments by the public. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-0-027 has received its first reading. Ordinance number 20-0-028.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a community reinvestment area agreement with JRG Holdings LLC.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Malachek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. This is a community reinvestment area application to be confirmed by council for the Old Village area. These are CRA applications for up to 10 years, 50% abatement. This one in particular is the former Snappy's car wash and drive-through beverage store purchased by JRG Holdings. It is now the Cardinal Auto Wash on Menor Avenue. Approximately $850,000 has been invested in the construction of a 5,800 square foot car wash and approximately $60,000 in the reimaging of the drive-through beverage store.
Yeah, Mr. President, just add to that, this is, the term of this agreement would be for 7 years based on that level of investment.
Correct.
Council, what is your pleasure?
Move to suspend. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-0-028 has been approved. Ordinance number 20-0-029.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a community reinvestment area agreement with 7200 Center Street LLC.
Mr. Flibiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Malachek.
Thank you, Mr. Flipiak. This also is a secondary community and reinvestment area application, again, for the Old Village area. This is for the former Polo building that is being renovated by Platinum Real Estate. They are planning to invest over $2 million in the purchase and renovation of the property at 7200 Center Street and will be relocating their current real estate headquarters from Willoughby to Mentor as a part of this. Total payroll that we'll be adding to the city should be about $3.7 million annually with the relocation of this business, and this is 10 years at 50%.
Council, what is your pleasure?
Move to suspend. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-0-029 has been approved. Ordinance number 20-0-030.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with American Fireworks Company to provide fireworks displays on or about July 4th, 2020, and during the 2020 City Fest events, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flibiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Kaminsky, please.
Thank you, Mr. Flipiak. 2 bid proposals were received for 2 fireworks displays for the Parks and Recreation Department. The 2 shows are July 4th display for $25,000 and the City Fest display for $3,500. Based upon the review, American Fireworks submitted the best proposal for both shows based on the number of shells and on the size of the shells. The proposals also included $10 million in liability insurance. It is therefore recommended that a contract be awarded to American Fireworks. Thank you.
Mr. Lanning?
Yes, Mr.
Quickly, is there any cancellation policy involved in this?
Yes, there is.
Move to suspend. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-0-030 has been approved. Ordinance number 20-0-031 as amended.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Engelkey Construction Solutions for the construction of a maintenance and office facility at the Menor Cemetery and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll ask Mr. Kaminsky to come up again. Also, just want to remind council that the bulk of this construction will be paid for with the bonded dollars that we received from the issuance from end of last year. Mr. Kaminsky.
Thank you, Mr. Flipiak. On February 27th, 2020, 7 bid proposals were received for the construction of the Mentor Cemetery Maintenance and Office Facility for the Parks and Recreation Department. The bids ranged from a low bid of $1,206 $1,206,400 to a high bid of $1,405,000. The low bid was received by Ingle Key Construction Solutions based out of Brunswick, Ohio, whose bid was found to be in conformance with all contract requirements. Based upon review by the City of Mentor Parks and Recreation Department and Burgess and Nyepel Engineering and Architectural Firm, it is therefore recommended to award the contract to Ingle Key Construction Company. Thank you.
Council discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr.
did we make
Krieger.
any changes on the construction of this? I mean, we were talking before about 3 bathrooms and lunchroom and some of the other areas, which personally I didn't feel were all necessary. Did we make any changes, or is it still sitting at that level?
Mr. Krieger, this is consistent with what council okayed at its last work session where we reviewed this prior to bid preparation. So I don't recall all of those changes that may have been discussed in past working groups, but this is consistent with what council gave the go-ahead to when we met last fall.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't this originally start out at $600,000?
The original estimate, the first architect's estimate was, Mr. Kaminsky, was it $1 million?
Yes, it was.
1.1.
Yes.
Coming in a little bit higher than the architect's estimate.
Mr. President,
From the far corner, Mr. Blake.
down here in the plebe section, Ken, I've got a question for you. We discussed before that because of the roaring economy, building construction was really expensive this year. Is this something that we should possibly wait until summer and maybe rebid it and see if we can get a better construction price? That's a lot of money.
It's a fantastic question, and we have rolled that question around in our minds quite a bit here. I will say this, though. I'm not sure, because the reality is, while we appreciate the fact that the economy has challenges ahead, we also might find ourselves in a place where the pent-up demand raises the prices even higher. So I can't answer that question, and I can't speculate as to what the future might bring. It's a little higher than our estimate. We know it's a difficult construction market right now. We're still competing. You know, these type of projects compete with some of the contractors that don't exclusively do commercial work. So those that kind of dabble in home building as well will bid on these. And so they're a busy group right now, despite what we've seen in the stock market.
So
I can't really give you an answer that I can feel comfortable with.
if we waited a month to our April meeting, and we put this on first reading tonight, would we have a better sense of whether waiting is an idea that we should look at, or would we know in a month?
Mr. Blake, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, honestly, with all the dynamism that we've seen. We certainly wouldn't be put off by holding this off for a second reading. I just don't know if we're going to see pent-up demand in that market make this go the other way, or if we see some better bids.
When you say pent-up demand, in other words, other projects are going to get stalled in other communities, so building contractors might become busier? Is that what you're thinking?
And everything is slowed down right now. You know, everything from, the people who are reluctant, because, a lot of the folks in the construction market are independent contractors. You have, we're continuing our inspection services as a community, but quite frankly, a lot of communities stop. So once people feel comfortable getting out there and getting back to work, you're going to see a lot of things happen, because quite frankly, I don't know if people know what to expect come fall with this. So I can't speculate it.
Can we push that building another year? Can we hold this off? I just have a feeling that we've sort of budgeted on this project because we're going to build it in a red-hot economy where we're competing with builders for all the projects that they've got ready to go. And if things change, which they seem to be changing, maybe down the line we can get a better price on this, because I think part of the price that we're looking at is because we're in a hot bid market. That's just my thought.
Mr. President?
Mr. Kirschner.
Yeah, I agree with Sean there on some of what he's saying there, in that I think it might be prudent, well, I think it would be prudent to put this on first reading to give our finance director, David Malinowski, an opportunity to possibly get a short-term look at where the economy's gonna go, where our receipts are gonna be, our income tax receipts are gonna be, and also to take a look at any of the non-essential projects we have on the table, that if this economy continues to go south and we find ourselves in a deep recession, that, we may have to cut back and put back some of these projects until a later date. So that would be my thought, put it on first reading, at the very least, to put it on first reading. So.
Mr. President?
Mr. Krieger.
You mentioned a good portion of this is bonded, or how much of that is
$1 million.
1 million out of the
So,
two
right.
is for the bond. Will that bonding still be available if we postpone this?
We have we've already received the money.
Okay, so it will be
So,
available.
so you really can't repurpose that.
So that million has to go towards this project.
Yes.
Mr. President?
Mr. Donovan.
So a second reading really won't do any good.
Well, I don't know what a second reading would do for you. It would give us some time to maybe evaluate and see where, we might be able to talk to a few folks to find out where they think the construction market is headed. Your best I would think that your options are obviously to not do the project at all, rebid the project, or accept this bid with an understanding that you could do worse down the road. None of us are fortune tellers here, so I can't offer you something. If this project, to Mr. Kirchner's point, if this project were not being funded by bonded debt and this was something discretional out of our reserves, I would probably tell you to hold off entirely on it.
Mr. Kirschner.
Not to beat a dead horse, but John did mention a figure of 600,000, and the first number out of the box was 600,000. Matt, you may recall, I reached over to you and said, I can buy a hell of a house for 600,000, because that's how I remember that was the number. Now, obviously, that was the first quote or a number that came out at a budget hearing, early budget hearing, but I think that's where that number's come from more than once. So it is what it is. I know the price goes up. We added extra amenities. We didn't want it to be siding. We wanted it to look good, but I think that's where that number comes from. So with that, I would move to put it on first reading.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Ordinance number 20-0-031 has received its first reading. Ordinance number 20-0-032.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Classic Ford of Mentor for the purchase of 7 2020 Ford Utility Police Interceptor vehicles and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Gunch, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Filipiak, and members of council. This ordinance is for the purchase of 7 new Ford utility vehicles. State bid price is $37,486. We're able to secure a price of $36,800 from Classic Ford, and that includes a 6-year, 100,000 mile warranty on it. The 7 vehicles that are going to be replaced are estimated to have mileage between 110,000 to 140,000 on each vehicle.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Donovan?
Yes.
Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-0-032 has been approved. Ordinance number 20-0-033.
An ordinance approving the Phase 1 final subdivision and dedication plat of 5 industrial lots in the Menor Innovation and Technology Park at Mercantile and Hamilton Drives and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Mitchell, please. Oh, there you are.
Thank you.
Tricky room today.
Thank you. The 87.43 total acre parcel located in the M1 Light Manufacturing District was first presented to the Planning Commission on July 11, 2019 for preliminary subdivision plat approval of an industrial subdivision. The Planning Commission approved the preliminary subdivision plat at the July 11th meeting by a vote of 7-0. The applicant is now proposing Phase 1 of the development with 5 sublots containing 27.23 acres. The Planning Commission reviewed the final subdivision plat for Phase 1 at their February 13th, 2020 meeting and recommended approval of the same by a vote of 7-0 with the conditions outlined at the end of the staff report dated March 16th.
Council, what is your pleasure?
Move to suspend.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-0-033 has been approved. Second reading. Ordinance number 20-0-022.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Menor 2006 as amended and the official zoning map by rezoning of approximately 73.536 acres of land from R4 Single Family Residential District to RVG Village Green District at permanent parcel number 16A005000050 located at the south side of Johnny Cake Ridge Road, west of Deepwood Boulevard, and declaring an emergency.
Does the administration have any update on this?
Nothing further at this time, Mr. President.
I note that, yes, Mr. Krieger.
Go ahead.
I note that the representative, the applicant is here today. Do you have anything, sir, you wish to say? Excuse me, there is a microphone tonight. We're changing our, so flexibility is the name of the day here. So go ahead.
Thank you. Jim O'Connor with Pulte Homes, 387 Medina Road. In our last meeting, Councilperson Marn had asked me some specific questions about quality in our design standards, at which point we went and toured the communities as he suggested, and I submitted the supplemental material book to you, which included a lot of the front elevations of the homes, the proposed homes, and then also with some updates in terms of some of the quality standards that he asked for in terms of drywall in the garage and the other standard conditions that we have. Another question came up with regard to the use of hurricane clips and our compliance with code, and we did a field tour and inspection again today, and we're fully compliant and utilize hurricane clips everywhere in every subdivision. And I had also included in the previous meeting the revised site plan, which is the new platting technique, or the Marshview platting technique, which got incorporated into the last meeting and everybody's package from last meeting, as well as the conditions for the visual screening and buffering along the western edge. So, thank you.
So in your time, Mr. Marn is not here because he's excused tonight, of course, but in your time with Mr. Marn, then there was discussion on amending details to the project relative to your meeting?
No, they weren't amendments as much as actually he asked for a reference manual to be submitted so that if there were any questions, somebody could look back and open up the document and see the standards that we are complying with.
Mr. President?
So,
Yes, Mr.
I have in my hand a condition number 11. Do you have that? Condition 11, architectural standards are established in accordance with the submission dated March 16th. Kathy, is that in our, this is some of the things I think Mr. Marn went over with Mr. O'Connor at,
Mr. President,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Law Director.
in response to Councilperson Donovan's request, that was a draft potential amendment. No, the applicant hasn't seen it
Okay.
because obviously there's been no amendment from the floor tonight, just
Okay.
yet.
All right. Well, I guess we'll look at it. Go ahead, John.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Krieger.
I guess addressed to Mr. O'Connor. Since we're going to this unified development parcel, and of course, this is a very small plan, I don't see anything concerning the exclusive use area within the complex or the 200 square foot delineation for porches and patios also included in that unified development plan?
there would be a 200 square foot porch or patio included with every house, a combination of 200 square feet total.
Okay, and the exclusive use area?
For each particular residence.
Correct.
Yes. So the pad.
I didn't see that where that was shown on here. I mean, it's hard to read, it's very small, but according to like Marshview, the one you're utilizing as a guide, they had the foundation, then they had basically the exclusive use area around the house, and I just didn't see that in the plan.
Yes, Mr. Zeman.
Generally, the custom is that those would be included in the declarations and not necessarily appear on a development plan because those would be a species of private deed restriction. Kind of like condominium declarations, these would be declarations for the association. So they would specify.
How do you know you get them then? How does the person buys a lot, how do they know they're getting exclusive use area around their foundation?
The declarations would be on file prior to any units being offered for sale. The law would require that happen. It has to be
So
of
we-
record, and that would be part of the initial disclosures that they would be required by law to provide to persons who may purchase.
So we're supposed to approve this on the FCOM of what we might see in the declarations?
No, those declarations would be private. Generally, the government doesn't, delve into private restrictions unless they're required by code, just like management and other things. The declarations can sometimes prohibit the number of animals that a person has. Declarations can prohibit the type of fencing. All of those could be at a variance with the law. They can't obviously allow things that the law prohibits, but they can be certainly more restrictive, and we certainly see that with
So this
homeowners
is something between the
associations.
residents and the association, has nothing to do with us then?
Correct, but again, those would be filed in of record prior to them being able to sell any of these units in there. Much like a condominium, they would have to be of record, and those have to be disclosed. So that persons would buying into the association, they would be provided a copy of a recorded instrument that would be of record, and so they would understand. And again, there's private deed restrictions out there that say you can't have, more than 2 dogs or 3 cats. Whether they get enforced or not isn't a city issue,
Okay.
of course.
All right, just wanted to ask.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Donovan.
I just want to, Mr. O'Connor, you have the condition?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay, and we're going to add one more on the bottom of that, drywalled garages. That doesn't,
Yes.
it's not in here, but it's in your book.
Correct.
But we'd like to have it in writing as
Yes.
a condition. Joe?
That would be, well, there's been no motion to amend, but that could appear as sub-item 5, drywall finished, garages shall be finished in drywall.
Yes.
I will move to amend
Second? Wait, Mr.
sub-item
Now,
5.
Just want to clarify, because Mr. O'Connor had changed the structure of the ownership, so we have not made that amendment either, correct, Law Director?
No, my understanding is this was always intended to be a homeowners association. What's changing is what's going to be common versus individually owned. Obviously, they're not going to be traditional sublots. They're going to be property unit blocks.
Exactly, but we have to make that amendment as well as the amendments on the number 11, is that correct?
I don't believe so. I think the proposed development plan, which already demonstrates, the council won't be approving sublots because the development plan does not provide for sublots. So I think in terms of what is required for the development plan and the rezoning, that the ordinance, subject to some further amendment, of course, is in good
My
shape.
confusion is the proposed development plan was brought to us at the first reading. So did we act on that to make it part? Okay.
Yes, that was part of the amendment, and so Exhibit B has already been substituted with the revised development plan.
Yeah.
Great. So continue, Mr. Donovan.
Call the roll. Condition 11, I'm just going to run, you have 1, 2, number 3, houses shall have roof overhangs and soffits. We're going to
Yes.
add end soffits in there, just so it's, they could have overhang, but they also need the soffit, so.
Yes.
It's my thing, you know? Everybody knows that. But, Mr. Zeman, should I move to?
Yes, the proper motion, if the councilperson desires, would be a motion to amend the ordinance, specifically at Exhibit C, to add condition number 11 as presented.
What he said.
What he said, and sub-item 5, with drywall garages will be added into that.
Yes, and I believe additional verbiage relative to soffits was added at item number 3, so that it would read, houses shall have roof overhangs and soffits.
Sure.
And
Second.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Blake?
Yes.
Move to suspend as amended.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 20-0-022 as amended has been approved. Third readings, we have none. Manager's report, Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. I'll keep this very, very brief. The city's yard waste collection program begins the week of April 6th, as a reminder to our residents. And we do want to give recognition to 3 new businesses here in our community. Heavenly Helper Home Care at 8324 Tyler Boulevard, Master D's Grill and Pizzeria at 7502 Mentor Avenue, and Austin's Grill at 8748 Mentor Avenue. And members of council and the public, again, we thank these new businesses for their investment in our community. But also, I want to encourage the public whenever possible, now especially, that please do whatever they can at this time to support our local businesses. This is a particularly tough time, and it's not going to get any easier. So we ask everyone to do their part. That's all.
Mr. President?
Oh, yes, sorry. There was an item on your agenda for consideration, an open cut for Aqua Ohio on Mentor Avenue. We're still working with them. We're trying to see if that can be avoided or at least put off. So that we'll be asking you to consider that this evening.
Thank you. Clerk's correspondence. Julie?
Council is in receipt of Mentor Municipal Court 2019 Annual Report. Also, a liquor permit transfer for Lawnfield Mentor LLC to Lawnfield Properties LLC at 8434 Mentor Avenue. That is all.
Commission committee reports, meeting minutes, Board of Building and Zoning Appeals, January 14th, 2020, Municipal Planning Commission, February 13th, 2020. Old business. New business.
Mr. President,
Mr. Donovan.
I'd just like to make a little bit of an announcement and congratulate our Mentor High School boys basketball team. They went to the regional finals, and they were champs, and then the hockey team also. They made it to the 8th round of the districts, and they made the districts, and these kids had to end their seasons in all the schools in the area. For the kids who aren't able to do their collegiate sports, that's a lot of their lives, and our prayers go out to them, and we hope all is well, and hang in there, and don't stop working out, keep running.
Mr. President, one other thing on new
Great.
business. With the shutdown of all our restaurants, taverns, and bars in the community, a lot of them are still providing carryout for the rest of the week, month, whatever, and especially a number of them have got a lot of corned beef on hand if anybody needs some. But they are offering takeout. Just want to let you know that.
Mr.
Well-
Kirschner.
Plus, there's also an app you can use called DoorDash that delivers. It's not that complicated to put together. I'm 69 years old, and I use it from time to time, so if I can find this app, load it, and
Yeah,
use it.
Uber also provides that.
And Uber does as
I think
well.
Grubhub and Lyft.
Grubhub,
so.
DoorDash, so if you're stuck in the house and you want to order something, you can do that, and they'll deliver it to your door, so. That's all I got.
Persons before council. Now, as you saw with our applicant, we have a slightly modified procedure. Ante has the microphone, he sanitizes it before he hands it to you, and he sanitizes it after you give it back to him. I would remind you to, I have 3 people to speak, to give us your name and address, and there is a 4-minute limit. So we will start with Paula Bielfeldt.
Hello. You said to give my address?
Yes, please.
I live on, my name is Paula Bielfeldt, and I live at 7335 Hart Street, Mentor, Ohio. And I'm speaking on issue 1, and I'd like to start with a quote. "Wildlife and its inhabitants cannot speak, so we must and we will." That is Theodore Roosevelt. There is a place that shelters the tallest trees on the planet, the Redwood National Park. But these ancient survivors, some 2,000 years old, almost completely vanished. 150 years ago, 95% of the redwood forest was destroyed for lumber and development. Only 5% stands today because of a fierce protector some called him idiotic, a fanatic, a tree hugger. His name, John Muir. There was a young man, 25. His mother and his wife fell ill. They died on the very same day. He wrote, "The light has gone out of my life." This young man took his grief out into nature, where he discovered its power to heal. He never forgot this connection to nature. Well, in 1903, this once young man was now President Theodore Roosevelt, and he visited John Muir. The two camped under the remaining redwoods and shared their love and connection to nature. They envisioned a protection of lands for all to connect. Today we have the national parks. I beg you, council members and voting citizens, to be stewards of the environment and the community. If the goal is to have desirable, issue 1, if the goal is to have desirable retail and commercial that appeals to the sensibilities of the current and future populations, then we have more than ample vacant commercial and retail. With a commitment to the revitalization of Old Mentor and the decaying retail all around the city, we could have the vital humming town center this proposal is suggesting. Mentor needs to stop abandoning the old and moving on to the next shiny new development. Please do not leave a legacy of yet another developed area as we have seen on every interstate exit in America. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. This is a critical moment in our city planning. We have the choice to make this moment be a great one. Do the Cleveland Clinic employees who will be across the street and its patients want to look out on a hotel, a gas station, a McDonald's, or would they prefer to connect with nature and heal? I beg you, please consider not rezoning this. That's all I have. But I've been a mentor for 55 years. My dad here, he's been here forever. We love Mentor. And just wanted to be good. Thank you.
Mr. President, can I comment on that?
Mr. Krieger.
Let me just comment on that. I think there's some misunderstanding here. I grew up in Mentor since I was 4 years old, so it's been a while. And I used to go sledding down Bolton's property when I was a kid. On that development, number one, it's not up to city council. That goes before the voters. But the Western Reserve Land Conservancy is the one taking over 70 acres. That parcel, which is south towards I-90 and across from where the Cleveland Clinic would go, will not be developed. That will be constant. It's a preserve. I know they keep saying it's a park. It is not a park. It's a preserve. We have nothing to do with that. I personally think it was very generous on the Bolton family, trying to leave a legacy, because they've been here for 100 years, the fact that they had turned down 3 previous developers because those developers wanted the entire property, were willing to pay for the entire property, but where the problem came is they wanted to tear down the woods and develop that too. And Bolton's absolutely refused that. That's why it got to the place it is now with the current development plan. But that property will not be developed. I personally hope, and I'll tell you why, I think the voters, I hope, will vote for it, because what happened in Old Creek, I don't want to see happen with Bolton property. And that was, the voters turned it down. It went to the court. The court's going to find that people have the right to develop their own property. You cannot stop them. But once the court made the decision, it took it away from the city of Mentor and our development plans and all the plans we've reviewed, changed, and added to say this is what we want to see for the city of Mentor and its people. And that's, I'm hoping, doesn't happen, because then we lose control and the court says you can do this, and they can change, they can go more commercial if they want. And that's what I'm hoping doesn't happen. But I think the Boltons have done a fine job on it. I think the people make their recommend, but it's still up to, at the bottom line, it's up to the people, but I hope they do approve it. But we won't find, well, I take that back. I got a text during the meeting that apparently we are still going to have voting tomorrow. The court did not approve the governor's, unless they file an action against that. But, you know, we're talking less than 12 hours before the polls open. Yes, sir. You already appealed? I think it's crazy to take away the vote. I mean, the vote's been going on for a month, but, you know, we're just city council. But I appreciate your interest in it, and your dad, I think, has been a member here for a while, too.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Paula Bielfeld.
I guess I'll make a comment on it, too. This is the time where we have the most control over what this development's going to bring. If it doesn't pass and they go back and they decide they want to do something else, we could lose everything. We have a couple years as a council here put into meeting with these people and negotiating deals and getting conditions that we want. We're all Mentor residents, we're all Mentor graduates and Lake Catholic graduates here, and we've been here our whole lives pretty much, and we're fighting for the best thing we could possibly get. We're with you on this. We feel what you're saying, and we love the property, but right now we have over 19 conditions of what they can do there, and right now is when we have the most leverage on that property to get what we want. And that's all I have to say.
But if you got real complaints, it's in his ward.
Mr. President.
Yeah, go ahead.
For clarification purpose, Mr. Flipbeck, perhaps you could help me. I often hear about the empty buildings and whatnot, and I know we have, about 7.5 million square feet of retail in the city, and
Correct.
of that 7 million plus square feet, is it true that there's only about 5% of that that's vacant?
That's pretty accurate, Mr.
I just wanted to clarify, because I hear about all these vacant buildings, and there's a gentleman sitting on right field over there that's constantly working on filling buildings like Toys R Us and Sears, that there's ongoing negotiations and discussions on all of those parcels. So there's a lot of that. But what you don't see is a lot of businesses leaving. And I think that's another important factor that I'm awful proud of our economic development department, because getting business is one thing and keeping them is another thing, and they do an excellent job of that. So I just wanted to clarify that, because like I said, I hear that an awful lot.
You do, and I'm going to add one comment to that, because I think what most people see is there's an area, most everybody, especially from Old Mentor, knows where Chase is, or Delaney's Chase Lounge is. And that property along there has been vacant for year after year after year, and the city's been trying to do something with the owners of there, and have been unsuccessful. Anything past that point would probably have to be answered by our law director of why we can't do anything. But that sticks out like a sore thumb, and we do try to take care of those things. Economic development manager over here, I mean, we have things move over off of Plaza Boulevard. We have reconstruction going on and something else moving in. So he does a great job, and, so I think Mentor, we have a pretty good occupancy compared to a lot of cities. But well
Counsel?
taken.
Counsel, your 4 minutes is up.
Well, and one thing you left out, and one St. Joe's graduate.
Yeah, we're not.
Oh, sorry about that, Ray.
Mr. Arthur B. Felt.
Mr. President,
Monte?
President,
just,
Ray,
Well-
that's not your fault.
Mr. Blake.
while everybody else is weighing in on this before it goes, I've been to a couple homeowners associations of groups in Ward 1, and it seems to be, when people ask me about this development, they bring up the traffic impact. So these homeowners associations, I've been echoing what we've been talking about. We'll handle it. We've got the ability to react to whatever comes out of this development in terms of traffic, and we will be able to adjust to it. And I've been telling them it's going to go in phases. We'll be able to handle the traffic that is generated from this project. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, sir?
I initially came up here to show support for her and agreement and everything else, but I think she's done a great job. And so when I came in, I changed my gripe about the mailbox that disappeared from out here.
Mr. B. Felt.
It was so convenient and handy, but as Councilman Dowling pointed out to me, it's a safety issue. So I was wondering, is there some place, well, for one thing, I think the city of Mentor needs more mailboxes, and is there some place that they can make a convenient drive-by mailbox that would be very, very helpful to the community, like the one that was out here?
Okay.
Mr. B. Felt, could you please state your address?
Oh,
and
I'm
name?
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My name is Arthur Bielfeld, and I live at 6161 Melshore Drive.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Flipiak. It's coming from all directions.
Well, we don't control where the mailboxes go in the city. That is up to the post office. But you can drop off your mail either in the lobby at City Hall, if you don't mind stepping out. We collect it at the front desk, and we collect it at the senior center. And that, at the end of the day, is picked up by the post office. And I don't disagree, it wasn't convenient, because I used it as well, but that was done for safety reasons.
Our third and final speaker, Mr. Bob Quayle. Please state your name and address, sir.
Okay. My name is Bob Quayle. I live at 8527 Johnny Cake Ridge Road, and I swear to God, I hate being on television because I got a great face for radio. And this is not where I want to be, but I'm here because, and Sean, I bow to your wisdom. I've been in business 55 years. I work with startups. I know a lot about financing. I'm not God. I don't know the future. But I study history, and we're about to repeat it. We are going into a recession depression. This has turned this bad thing into a perfect storm of bad, because money is going to be very hard to get. It's going to be hard for the development. It's going to extend the life of the construction of it, and people aren't going to have the money to buy the houses. The other thing is, the thing was badly. By the time it came out to the people, you may have knocked around and said you got 19 concessions. No. If you cared about us, the high-density housing would be on the south side. That way, they would only have to have cut exits over to 615, which is already a wide road. That would allow Johnny Cake to keep its charm and quiet and allow the people on Johnny Cake, myself included, to keep their houses and their current value. Because when you start doing that, our value is going to go by the Realty Association says up to 19% when this type of things happen. And the other thing is, when you got a hotel near an exit on an expressway, they often have hourly rates because what goes on in them is obscene. And it's that one exit down on 306, they have pedophiles living in those two hotels because they have to register. It's only a matter of time. And you guys are going to turn Mentor into the 615 and 84 are going to be turned into the Cedar and Brainerd mesh you have off of 271, a parking lot. You may say you can handle it, Sean. I'll be dead by that time. And I'm glad, but it's my grandchildren I worry about. I'm 76 years old. I'm at risk for this, whatever we're going through right now. But this is more important to me. I mean it. You can say what you want. You're failing the people of Mentor with what we're moving forward with. I'm sorry you backed yourself into the corner, but if you had redesigned it, you might have gotten it through. I really feel it's going to be defeated 3 to 4 to 1. And then the people of this city, your employers, work for you. You work for, have spoken. And we pay a city attorney. There are, like the governor went to the Supreme Court, there are things to do. Our lawyers that we pay for are supposed to defend us. And please, I really don't want to, at the end of the day, 76 years old, I want to put my feet up, have a scotch, and, you know, not go near the car keys. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Comment on that, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Krieger, you may.
Okay, first of all, there's no commercial construction going on at the corner of 615 and 84. And you say we're failing the people of the city of Mentor, you think this is going to go down 3 to 4. And the thing is, it's not anymore up to the city council. It's up to the residents of the city of Mentor as to whether or not they want this. And again, I want to say that if it goes down, then it goes to the court, and the court decides. And then the court could say, change this entire plan, and they could put commercial down at the corner of 615 and 84, and we, as a council, the city of Mentor, would have nothing to say about it, nor could we stop it.
What I'm saying is that you did not get the housing moved south. Most of that development could have been moved south.
That's why we put commercial south, down by the freeway, away from the residential area of Route 84.
You wouldn't have to cut through.
So you would prefer to have the commercial down on 84?
No,
Well, then what?
no. I said, put it south, on the south end, over near 90.
The commercial at the south end.
It is where it
Yes,
is.
but put it all down there. Put it all down there, you only have to cut out through 615, which is already a wide road.
Yeah.
There's no added expense of expanding 84.
Well, they can always expand the roads. They did it to me. I grew up on Route 20. It was a 2-lane road. Now it's not.
You still live at 20?
No, not anymore.
Okay, I
I
think
grew up
that's
there.
the end
My
of
parents
the,
lived there.
Generous
the
with your
dialogue.
time. I've had my stay, and I pray to God I'm not back here again. You guys are really tired of looking at this other place. I know you.
But we're used to it now.
I don't know.
And we appreciate your
I don't think
comments.
anybody gets used to me.
Next time,
I don't get used to me.
next time, come with one of your poems.
I'll give you one right now.
Okay. I want to hear that. No,
Souls
he's-
cannot extol, no, I better not do that one.
Let's, I think we're complete with this.
Okay, all right.
John wanted a poem. I'm gonna give it for him.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
So moved.
I tried.
This meeting is adjourned.